Okay, so today we're going deep on this SignalGate thing that's been making the rounds, all the chatter about the Signal app and whether it's really as secure as everyone says, especially with all these reports about government officials using it.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild situation, right? I mean, Signal has this reputation for being super private and secure.
Right, like it's the go-to app if you want to keep your conversations away from prying eyes.
Exactly. And now it's smack dab in the middle of this whole government security debate.
And to think it all started with some reports of top U.S. officials and intelligence folks just casually chatting away on Signal.
Well, not just chatting, like we're talking sensitive discussions here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And this journalist from The Atlantic gets accidentally added to the group chat and sees everything.
Oops.
Yeah, big oops. And of course, that's when the whole controversy exploded. People started questioning the competence of the officials involved, like Pete Hegseth, the Minister of Defense.
Yeah, his name was definitely in the mix.
And then you've got Donald Trump downplaying the whole thing, calling it a simple pep-in, like it's no big deal.
Right. And throwing in some criticism of the journalist in The Atlantic for good measure. It's like a classic deflection tactic.
Totally. So then a few days later, this Pentagon email from March 18th pops up, and it's specifically raising red flags about Signal's security.
Yeah, the memo straight up says a vulnerability has been identified in the app.
Which is kind of ironic when you think about it, because the reason Signal is so popular is because of its strong encryption.
Right, it's like a double-edged sword.
Mm.
The same features that make it attractive to people who want privacy also make it a prime target for anyone trying to intercept those communications.
And the Pentagon memo actually calls out professional Russian hacker groups, specifically saying they're exploiting the linked devices feature to listen in on conversations.
Ah, the linked devices thing.
Yeah.
So that's basically a feature that lets you use Signal on multiple devices like your phone and your computer at the same time.
Right, but the catch is if someone gets access to one of your linked devices, they could potentially see your messages.
Exactly. That's where the vulnerability comes in.
And the memo even links this whole thing to a discovery by Google about some shady QR code schemes that are designed to compromise Signal accounts.
Oh, yeah, those QR code things are pretty sneaky. So basically, someone could trick you into scanning a malicious QR code, and boom, your Signal account is linked to their device without you even knowing it.
They're like digital sleight of hand.
Mm.
But here's the thing. Signal fired back with their own statement on March 25th. And they're basically saying, hold on a second, this isn't a vulnerability in Signal itself.
Yeah, they're pushing back pretty hard on that.
They're saying it's all about phishing attacks targeting users.
Which, to be fair, are a pretty common problem across the internet.
Totally. So just to break it down for anyone who's not familiar with phishing, it's basically when someone tries to trick you into giving them your personal information or access to your accounts, through fake emails or messages or links.
Exactly. And Signal's argument is that these phishing attempts have nothing to do with the technology at the heart of Signal, meaning their end-to-end encryption.
Right, which is designed to make it impossible for anyone other than the sender and the recipient to read the messages.
So their stance is that the Pentagon's warning is really just a general caution against phishing scams, which happen all the time on all sorts of platforms.
But still, it does raise some interesting questions about the role of human error in all of this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, even with the most secure technology in the world, things can go wrong if people aren't careful.
Like that whole thing with the journalist being added to the group chat by mistake. That was a human error, not a technical failure.
Exactly. And then you've got those malicious QR code schemes that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Those rely on tricking people into scanning something they shouldn't.
So it really highlights the importance of being vigilant, double checking things like your link devices and being wary of suspicious links.
Couldn't agree more. And it's worth mentioning that Signal has actually taken steps to try and mitigate these risks.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, they've apparently implemented some new features and in-app warnings to make people more aware of what they're doing when they link new devices.
Makes sense. I mean, anything that helps people avoid accidentally compromising their security is a good thing.
For sure. And, speaking of the human element in all of this, Philippe Waterloos, the creator of Le Podcast de Philippe, had a really interesting take on the SignalGate situation.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
Well, he pointed out that the most obvious security lapses seem to be stemming from human mistakes more than anything else.
Which kind of goes back to what we were just saying.
Exactly. But then he takes it a step further and asks this really thought-provoking question. He wonders if the journalist being added to that group chat was actually an accident.
Whoa. You mean like someone did it on purpose?
Well, he's not saying for sure, but he's suggesting the possibility that it could have been a deliberate act, to stir up trouble or leak information.
That's a pretty big claim.
It is. And then he poses another really interesting question. He asks who stood to benefit from this information becoming public.
Hmm. That definitely adds a whole other layer to the situation.
It does. It introduces the idea of strategic intent and manipulation, which is a whole different ballgame.
So where does that leave us with this whole SignalGate thing?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that while there have been some legitimate concerns raised about signal security, especially when it comes to government use per FES, the app itself is still maintaining that its core encryption is rock solid.
Right. It seems like the bigger issue is phishing and the fact that humans are often the weakest link in the security chain.
And that's a problem that goes way beyond just signal. It's something we all need to be aware of.
Absolutely. I mean, we live in a world where technology is constantly evolving and the threats are becoming more sophisticated.
And human error is always going to be a factor.
So how do we achieve truly secure communication in this kind of environment, especially in sensitive contexts like government?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It requires a combination of things. We need robust and trustworthy technology, but we also need people to be vigilant and practice good cybersecurity habits.
And that's something we all have a role to play in.
Absolutely. So to our listeners out there, think about this. If even the most secure technology can be undermined by human mistakes, what does that tell us about the challenges of protecting our communications in today's world? What steps can we take as individuals to make ourselves less vulnerable to these kinds of threats?
It's something worth pondering. And if you're as fascinated by these deep dives as we are, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help the podcast to Philippe reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We really appreciate your support.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Catch you next time.